Up close, hold on. Thank you. So we're gonna chant this in Tibetan, and normally we would put our hands in anjali or folded together in prayer mudra at our heart. Whoops. Okay, let's begin. On doje chanchen dilo narodan marpa mila chuje gamboba dusum sheja unkenga mapa chechi chunge yupazinanda Dritatsasum adendrulaso zablam jadya chelanya nebe nyame drogun napokajula soadepso kagyulama nam yupasino nanta jinjilo jinlo kongi kambasun pajin senor kuna jujin me adan Siddhidat Chupegom Chenla Nikojemba Mipajinjilo Mukugongi Osun Pajin Menyateku Chipe Lamala Yundu Soa Tepe Gom Chenla Chumin Mugu Yewa Jinjilo Yenme Gongi Mushi Sun Pajin Nanchatope no so madi machu dekar chope gomchenla Bonjaladan Drawar Chinjilo Nantogo Chukur Sun Pajin Chiyan Mayim Chiryan Charwala Makaropar Charwe Gom Chenla Kordeyeme Tupar Jinjilo Yewa Kundu Yandala Madan Rame Chuki Palalon Jojin Sadalamki Yunten Ra Zone Toje Changi Upanyo Dosho Doche Changi Upanyo Dosho. And Caitlin, can you run it back? We're going to say it in English now. Thank you. Great Vajradhara, and everyone please join me. Great Vajradhara, Talopa Naropa, Marpa Milarepa, Lord of Dharma Gampopa, knower of the 3 times, omniscient Karmapa, holder of the 4 great and 8 greater 8 lesser lineages. Trikung, Taklung, Sapa, these 3, glorious Drukpa, and so on, masters of the profound path of Mahamudra. unequaled protector of beings, the Dakpo Kagyu, I supplicate you, Kagyu Lamas. Grant your blessing that following your example, I hold your lineage. Detachment is the foot of meditation as is taught. To this meditator, who is not attached to food and wealth, who cuts the ties to this life, grant your blessing that I have no attachment to honor or gain. Devotion is the head of meditation as is taught. The Guru opens the gate to the treasury of oral instructions. To this meditator who continually supplicates you, grant your blessing that uncontrived devotion be born within. Non-distraction is the body of meditation as is taught. I'm sorry. All right. Whatever arises is afresh the nature of thought. So let me say that again. Whatever arises is fresh the nature of thought. To the meditator who rests simply without altering it, grant your blessing that meditation is free from conception. The nature of thought is Dharmakaya as is taught. Nothing whatsoever, it arises as everything. To this meditator for whom all arises as unceasing play, grant your blessing that I realize samsara and nirvana inseparable. Through all my births, may I not be separated from the perfect Guru, and so enjoy the splendor of Dharma. Perfecting the qualities of the paths and stages, may I quickly attain the state of Ajadara. Thank you, Caitlin. So just to let Caitlin or whoever's doing the PowerPoint, which I think Lama Cathy's probably stepped out by now, I'm going to just first do an introductory talk. I had asked earlier if anyone had done retreat. I think we're almost at the same number of people. Maybe Carmen is new. And Evelyn Kelso, if you're there and you're needing help, you could always go back out and come back in. I still see that it says you're connecting to audio. I don't know if you're there or not. So, but it is unmuted. So a couple of you, Spencer, and hi, Helder. Helder, have you done a retreat ever in your past? You can unmute and talk for a second. I'm trying to kind of do a little survey here. Maybe not. You're still muted. Okay. Sometimes I find it's always challenging because we've learned to be so good about, muting ourselves. So sometimes it's hard for conversation. Lama Cathy, was there anything you wanted to say? I couldn't remember. No, we're starting in. Okay. So I thought I would just for a moment, particularly since Lama Cathy is right here, thank her. She probably doesn't, I don't know if she remembers this or not, but when I was brand new to Buddhism, my husband and I stayed at our monastery for a while. Maybe it was over probably Thanksgiving holiday or something. And Lama Cathy was doing she was doing a retreat there where she just rented a room at the monastery and she did a White Tara retreat. And I volunteered to bring the food up these rickety stairs. But then I was very, very active. So, and I would bring her meals up to her. And then when she was done, she put like a hotel, you put the tray outside the door and someone remove it. And she would write the cutest little notes if there was anything she needed. And that really inspired me, Lama Cathy, to want to do a solitary retreat. I think you did weeks. Was it normally a week retreat that you did for White Tara, I think? So that's a very good example of different styles of retreat people do. A few years after that, a lot of us that do Lundro, because Lundro is a very long journey, we often will, if we have time, we'll go somewhere or even at home and put aside some time besides our normal, this is aside from your daily practice. But a lot of us will go somewhere and maybe stay somewhere for a week. But I got to stay a month at a retreat cabin at the monastery site where Lama Wangwo had done a 12-year retreat. So the first level was like, I think, earthen, and it had a water a plastic container where somebody put a garden hose in it. So I had a water source. There was a wood stove. I didn't know how to use a wood stove. And this was late fall. But upstairs was gorgeous. You had a view of the Hudson Valley because she put in a huge picture window so she could look out. And that's very important sometimes when you're doing retreat. So there in my retreat, I was able to finish part of my Ngundro. And also I did a great deal of practice with Chenrezig. So today is going to be, I'm going to give you lots of options. Retreat is very personal. And I would first like to invite each of you to tell me why you're attending this retreat. You want to start, Caitlin? Or are you just doing it because you're helping volunteer?
No, I had signed up beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I just want to learn more about it. I still feel like I'm pretty new to all of this, but I'm definitely interested in the idea of taking some separate time to focus really specifically on practice. And I want to hear more about what that might look like.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Debbie, I'm just going to kind of go across the way. You all have to unmute.
Yeah, right. I was trying to find the button.
I know. You probably know where it is anymore.
No. Yeah, I've wanted to do this for quite a while, and I was trying to figure out, is there a way to do it and stay at home? You know, and I have a really hard time separating, you know, just staying in practice and not, you know, cleaning the kitchen or doing something around the house. So
yeah, we're definitely going to tap on that today because that's where most of us do a lot of our practice. I know we all practice at home, but
yes,
there's a way to make your home into a little retreat facility. Yeah, good. I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. And Matthew?
Hi, yeah. I think I'm just here for the, the basics, just to get a feel for it, because I don't know what all goes into the specific routine of a retreat. So I'm just kind of here to listen and, roll from there.
Okay, great. Justin?
Like Matthew, I'm interested in some of the basics, and I've done some retreat, but out of sort of like a Christian context. So, and I've, recited mantra while hiking and things like that. So I'm interested in what kind of tips you have. Thank you.
Okay, great. And Patricia?
Kind of what I've heard. I'm also a little bit interested in what prayers to say, in what order to be most effective for different kinds of practices. And I would like to know, what makes the container of retreat so that you can be at home. And if you also might say this is just more practical, ways you can adjust the prayers if you have less time, but you're wanting to do a little bit of different practices.
Can I just ask, what are you doing, Ngundro, or anything right now? What is your main, and where are you at in Ngundro?
I'm doing Guru Yoga in
nice.
Ngundro.
Okay, so I'm going to hold on. I'm going to write on a piece of paper here so I remember all these things, because that's a good one. So we talked about home, we talked about tips, and you talked about prayers and timeline. Great, thank you. Helder? Hi, Helder. Oh, what? I thought you were at the center. I'm joking. I always like your background.
Hi, so I'm just interested how you guys do the retreat at home, because I've done in the past, by myself or shamanic groups, but I'm just interested how things works.
Thank you. And Julie, are you able to talk?
I'm here. Thank you. Sorry, I had somebody pop in there. So I did retreat. I felt over the last year or so in my condo. And I guess I was just looking to pick up any tips or, deepen my practice. So, yeah, I was just interested because I don't feel like it's a formal retreat that I was doing at home, but it was my practice. So a lot of times I was in my place all day and, didn't leave, and it felt like a retreat cave. So that's, yeah.
Great, thank you. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's see. Evelyn, I can see you now. Hi there. You can unmute and tell me, I'm so glad that everything's working. So
Okay.
why are you here today?
I'm here because I've just got a lot of things going on right now. I'm staying with my 100-year-old father who just got out of the hospital, and then I took a walk and broke my shoulder. And so there's just a lot of things going on, and I felt like retreat mind would be a really good thing to cultivate.
Yeah.
And then tips for, maybe just doing shorter kinds of retreat practices, or just right now I can't think too much about doing, anything too extended. And by that, I might even mean like an hour or so, but just, I can always keep the intention, and then we'll see how things go from there.
Great, thank you. And let's see, I've not heard from, hi, Spencer.
Hi, yeah, so I guess I was just interested in learning about the basics of a retreat as well, and just sort of what that'll entail. And like Debbie, I was curious about the at-home factor, just how we can do a retreat from home.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. Have I talked to everyone? There was no one I didn't talk to. Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. Those are really good feedback. So I remember, so I mentioned I did a 1-month retreat at the monastery. And what I didn't mention was I was completely dependent on food from the monastery kitchen. And I was in a separate location. And normally certain cooks asked me what I liked. And I said, I didn't want big heaps of brown rice. But I would always know who gave me the food, because certain cooks were really into healthy food, whereas others would like slip a slice of cake or something, some kind of treat. And that meal was also my dinner. And then for breakfast, late at night before I went to bed, I would put a stainless steel bowl. I just thought this might work, and it did, with oats in it on top of the stove. And it made the best oatmeal, and I would put some dried apricots in it. So I wasn't starving at all. It was the most sublime retreat. Late at night, sometimes cougars would come to the back door, because upstairs was built also into a hillside, and you'd hear the snarling. And I remember one day I opened the door, and I was rather shocked to see who was out the door. So I never opened that door again. And I had an outhouse. That was very interesting. You should do a retreat one time in your life with an outhouse. But it was really nice because it was completely cloistered off from, no one could see me. Like if they gave me food, they would ring a bell, and then they would slide it through another door. It was a very nice cloistered event. But one time I went outdoors to go to the outhouse. It just finished snowing. And I saw all these tiny little, I'm not crazy about birds. I saw all these tiny blackbirds on a sumac tree. They were actually indigo bunnies. When the sunlight hit them, it was like all purple. It was just so amazing. So when you're in retreat, everything's amazing. But I remember years later, after I had a stroke, Kemp Rinpoche asked me to come to Karmi Ling and live in a building that hadn't been occupied yet. It's now, later on, it became his residence. So I was completely alone, and I did 3 months there. And that was pretty astounding. And I, again, was finishing up different parts of Lindro because I couldn't walk very well. And so there I really learned how to walk also again. Rinpoche was really adamant about my physical therapy. It was wonderful. But way before that, I once talked to Trungpa Rinpoche about having funny karma about not being able to do 3-year retreat. And he said, well, 3-year retreat is very profound, but for most people, they'll probably never do 3-year retreat. But what you can do every day, if you have the right mindset, in your shrine room, that will be your retreat cave. That hour, 20 minutes, whatever you're doing, that is a retreat, if you want to look at it that way. So I hope you realize that all the hard work that you're all doing is very profound. And it's very useful to know. But today's class will be very, very practical about how to prepare this, how to prepare that. And based on all of you, I think, how many of you are doing Ngundro? Can you just raise your hands? Let me try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Julie, I think Julie, I don't know what she's doing, but so we can sort of talk about 2 types of retreats with prayers. We'll talk about Ngundro, and we'll also talk about Chenrezig. Do all of you do Chenrezig? Who doesn't know what Chenrezig? Yeah. So my first, the 1-month retreat I did, every night I did Chenrezig, and it was the most beautiful thing to finish having done prostrations all day, to have this really quiet, beautiful moment thinking about compassion. So retreats are very much up to you, how your personality, your timeline, your limits, your resources, how much time you can get off of work. And I think the biggest advice I would always give, this is Rinpoche always gave all of us this advice. Don't start off too big. Do a little bit and see. So it still is a very positive event, positive experience. And then over time, you might start out with just half day if you have a half day, so that you don't feel like you're losing out on your whole weekend or something. Then maybe stretch it into a day. Or if you don't have that, maybe like in Evelyn's situation, you have a lot going on with caring for someone. Maybe whenever you have a break, just visualize you're sitting, in a cave with all the wonderful ones of the past guiding you. So anyway, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. So I first just wanted to talk about, and I forgot when I did I've worked so much this last few weeks, I haven't been able to really access my computer as much, but most of what I'm going to talk about is from Karma Chagme's mountain retreat. Are you all familiar with this? Tomorrow I'm teaching on this at the 11:30 class. I'm teaching just on who Karma Chagme is, but I'm going to give you guys the 5, like the nickel tour, or maybe a dime tour. So there are 5 volumes. 1 through 4 are in English. Volume 5 is all Tibetan, is the actual manual in straight Tibetan. And after my stroke, which was in the late 90s, Rinpoche contacted Orville and I and said, I'd like you to come to the monastery to get more blessings a lot. Because when you've had something like a strange accident, you don't want to attract any more problems. So we would drive 12 hours each direction and go to the monastery. And I got to sit in on probably 10, 15, or 20 of Rinpoche's weekends on this book. And Karma Chagme was a saint. This is a picture of Karma Chagme. He lived in the 17th century in Tibet, Eastern Tibet. He was very learned. He studied with so many different teachers of both Kagyu and Nyingma tradition, and spent 13 years in retreat. Now, retreat, it was kind of more like Karma Ling retreat. It wasn't a building, it was a cave. And what they did, there was a whole bunch of people in the cave. It's a huge cave doing retreat. And normally what they do on the outside, they put a wooden wall or something so no one could get in there. And there's often a little hole, a speak hole where people could speak through. And because he was so accomplished, someone contacted him and said, I'd like to have some teachings from you. And he said, no problem, just come. And so this entire book is based on his conversation with this one monk. And it's just phenomenal. He said, and Khenpo Rinpoche has quoted, that if you just put this on your pillow, you'll get all the teachings. If you don't have a teacher in your area, this is a teacher. It's so profound. And Karma Chagme is so brilliant, but he's one of the most simple style teachers I've ever seen his teachings. It's just, You know how sometimes you go hear a teaching and it just sticks because it was so profound but simple and very clear. There's no BS with him. He just likes to make it really clear, but it's so rich. He has entire chapters on what mantras to do if you're having obstacles, if you're having this, if you're having that. But I particularly like it because it's downright inspiring. Now, the other reference I'm going to say is, if you're going to do a retreat that's at least one day, and we're talking probably, now, Caitlin, you could adjust this to the hours depending on if you're not a morning person. But, retreats a little bit mirror what you do in 3-year retreat. You wake up at 4 a.m. or before 4, you're on the cushion at 4. And let me see. Oh, I don't need PowerPoint yet. I'm still doing the intro. Thank you. But it's called having 4 tuns or 4 sessions, and they're all based around the sun and our meals, of course. So in retreat, of course, you can eat if you wish, and it's better to eat. And if you're monastic, you probably wouldn't eat dinner, but you would probably eat breakfast and lunch. So, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more, but I'm just going to give you a general schedule. So in 3-year retreat, you would always wake up and start practice at 4 to 7 or 7:30, and then you go to breakfast. And so that's about when the sun's coming up. And then maybe you stretch your legs for a little bit, then you go back to the next session, either with a group or in your room, depending on the retreat schedule. So you have session 1 before sunset, and after breakfast until lunch. And then you have an afternoon one, and then an evening one. Now, Khenpo Rinpoche and Karma Chagme have all said, you might not be able to do that schedule. Do what you can afford and do what is comfortable for you. So I don't want you to spend a lot of money on items and get distracted with that. The most important thing is actually to do your practice and to have a nice, safe, cozy place to do it in. So I've had friends that have actually created retreats by clearing out part of their closet, so they want it to feel more like a cave. Everyone's different around space, right? I know in this is my shrine room, and I used to sit in back of here looking at my shrine. I've now changed direction since COVID. I like to look outside a little bit. And Karma Chagme actually touches on this later. But Caitlin, can you put up, or maybe it's Lama Cathy that asked, let me see if I can put up my my presentation. Let's see if I have luck. Whoops, we don't want that. Can you all see that?
Yeah,
Someone
it
can
works.
Okay, great. It does work. Great. Thank you. I'm never sure. So I think you won't see me for a while. I'm going to just sort of talk from here. Let me go back. I'm kind of not looking at the greatest style, the greatest presentation style, but I think if I double tap on this, no, let me see. It's really different here than it is on an iPad. I mean, than a normal computer. Anyway, I just love this picture because part of your daily retreat should be going outside and stretching your eyes a little bit, especially at sunrise or sunset. And this is what we're going to cover today. This is just as basic, based on Karma Chagme Rinpoche's Mountain Retreat book. We're going to talk about distractions, preparation, the schedule, offerings, and what to practice. And again, this is a picture of Karma Chagme. And then, and I'll tell more stories about him tomorrow. So there's several distractions that get in the way of even beginning a retreat. We all do this. We all think, oh, the shrine's not perfect. Oh, I'm not making enough offerings. Oh, do I have enough time? And so everything is fine. Whatever you're going to do is perfect. So don't worry about everything being perfect. The most important thing is just to practice and to realize our lives are so short and that this is a very rare opportunity you have. And there's two other distractions around the mind. The ordinary mind loves to be distracted. You'll be practicing, you'll think, oh, maybe I should go turn on the TV, or maybe I need to buy something. This would be me. I need to go order something on Amazon. Have you ever been in a profound place and suddenly you're thinking, oh, I gotta go order that? No, that's not what we do here. Or the third one, it says thinking Dharma. So many times we don't think we're smart enough with Dharma. And Dharma is not all about being smart, but people think they need to fill their minds up with information about becoming an expert in Buddhism. And that's fine if that's your goal. But for the retreat, we don't want to do that. We just want to relax our mind. The whole reason for doing retreat is not to be distracted, both internally and externally. And also, I don't have it on here, but conversation can be a really big distraction. So if you have a roommate, you might have to talk to them. But in true retreat, at certain points, you're completely silent. You learn to write notes or just to make very simple hand gestures. At home, if you live alone, of course, you have no problem, except just if you can, depending on your job, just turn your phone off for a while. If you can't, then just know that's fine. So these are just some of the distractions. I think the biggest distraction will be later on when we making offerings like, is this enough? Is this not enough? What practice should I do? How long should I do the practice? The whole point of retreat is not to become more neurotic, but to have a quiet space, isolated from other people, where we can further develop our bodhicitta, further become in touch with all the wonderful teachings we received, to realize our Buddha nature, and to have quieter times within, gentle times within. Okay, now preparation. Now I just love making lists, so this was really fun for me. So we're going to talk about your space, when to do retreat, food, and remember why you were doing this. So let's go to space. You can do retreat anywhere. You can rent a hotel room. You do it while you're camping. I like what Justin said, did mantras while he was hiking. That would be a walking retreat, but Ninja Rinpoche definitely did that. You could rent a room in a monastery or retreat facility. I've done that many times. At KTD, they have like 10-day retreats. They actually use the word retreat. We're in a gathering with lots of people. It's very social. But there are times when there's no talking, where we're completely quiet and we're practicing, or we're getting teaching. So it really varies. But I think for the variety of us, it will be home. And I'm going to say this now. I woke up in the middle of the night, tried to remember to say this. I used to have some beautiful cats, and I learned never to close your door if you're meditating, because they'll just scratch. I'm sure dogs are the same way, because they're so curious. If you have children, you're going to have to work that out. If they're super young, you just have to look at being a parent as that's your retreat at that point. But like I said, you could rent a retreat room somewhere. And then how to set up the room. It should be very clean. Make it nice and clean. Shouldn't be cluttered. So it can be cluttered everywhere, but at least not where you're looking, so that your mind is not distracted by a lot. And if you have just one room, it might have a shrine, a bed, or a chair, and maybe a table. But Rinpoche used to talk about some people in retreat, their biggest distraction is the pen, because they want to write everything down. For him, he was the tailor of the monastery, so his was his needle and thread. So just be aware of that. So when do you do retreat? You can do it at any time it's convenient. There are blessed days, multiplier days. We just had one in Sakadawa, where everything you did there was, any good action was multiplied thousands and thousands of times. Full and new moons are also good times for that. Or when you're off of work, That's another one. Food is a really big category. Oh, and if there are any questions, people can just speak up. I can't see you because the way this works, but okay, let's talk about food for a minute. All right, let me see. I think I'll go all the way through preparation and then I'll come back to the screen. Food is big because you want to have really simple, clean food. Like breakfast would be just depending on your culture. If you eat, vegetable soups, or if you eat oatmeal or eggs or whatever it is that you need for your nutritional need. I mean, nutritional needs are important, but you don't need to eat very much because you're not going to be exercising the whole time. But food is important because you don't want to have to take half of your retreat time in preparing food. So I would highly recommend having something that you could either boil or microwave very quickly, or even just have a sandwich. I used to live on peanut butter and lettuce sandwiches. I love that combination. It sounds weird because I can make them ahead of time and have them with me. So I didn't have to even leave my room. So whatever works for you. Don't forget water and tea or coffee or whatever you drink. And for your food, you can of course leave your retreat room and go down to or over to wherever you're eating at, or you could eat in your retreat room. But for fluids, I would always have a thermos with some hot tea or coffee, and then I would have water and maybe some snacks, but don't sit there the whole time eating in retreat. It's just to stave off a little hunger. And then for preparation, I don't know why I put this, but I said, remember why you're doing this. Of course, we do that all the time. And the next part of preparation is, food. So I think that's about everything I said, but definitely make it ahead of time. That's what I used to do. And my retreat, when I was doing a 3-month retreat at Crummy, I sometimes would go off into the woods, and I found little spots where I could do retreat under huge evergreen trees. And I would just sit there all day. The only distraction are all the insects out in the country. But I would always have a sandwich with me and a little bit of water. It was fine. So that's pretty much for that. So the next 2 topics are offerings and practice. So let me get out of this. I don't remember how to get out of it. Let's see.
I think there might be, oh, there you go.
Yes. Yeah.
I was just going to suggest how to get out of the screen share, but I think you solved it.
So it says live broadcast has stopped.
Yeah.
You have stopped screen share. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, great. So does that make sense so far? This is common sense, right? Says you to start your video. Okay. So, I mean, this is pretty simple because it's so individual. Let's talk about offerings for a minute. No, I keep forgetting to miss one. Rinpoche said that when you set up your shrine, if you have blessed rice from like Lama Cathy or the Karmapa, you could just throw a little bit of blessed rice on your shrine. If you don't, and you have substances where you normally open your shrine where you have, or you could take a bowl of rice and say mantras over it, like Om Ahum, and put that aside and have that be your blessed rice. If you live somewhere where you can't get blessed rice, but we should be able to send you blessed rice if you need it. But you would normally open your shrine. I assume you all know how to do that for the most part. And then you would throw rice on it to bless the shrine. So Debbie, you could have your husband bless the rice. Yeah, because the lamas can bless rice. And that's very important so that your shrine is blessed. Now, but on the shrine, you can really zhush it up a bit because this is an opportunity that you would not always meet. So you would have, especially offerings, they would be fresh flowers if you can get them. You could put little plants, put a plant in front of your shrine. It doesn't have to be on the shrine. And you would have food offerings. And traditionally, that would be fruit and nuts. They would be dried or fresh. If you're into baking, or if you bought some pretty baked good or a cake that you're going to have later, or brownies or whatever, you can have a little piece be on your shrine, just as long as you don't smell it the whole day. It would drive me nuts. But flowers, and incense, of course, is a beautiful offering. If you're not allergic to incense, definitely offer incense. And through the day, your shrine would stay the same, but you could keep offering more lamps, candles, or like I use electric tea lights. You could keep putting more there, or you could use a butter lamp with an electric tea lamp, and you can make more offerings through the day. So that's it's very meritorious. Now, I didn't talk about schedule. I just realized at work, I typed up an entire screen on schedule and I didn't talk about it. So would you guys like me to do like an example of like a half day and an all day retreat? Why don't we do that? I kind of did touch on it a little bit, but you would wake, I mean, most of you know I work nights, but I would still probably do this during the day because there's such a blessing at certain times of the day. So I'm going to give you an example, a rundown of what I do in retreat. I would wake up about 3:30, take a quick shower, bring everything upstairs, and maybe have a cup of tea if I'm really hungry, and then open my shrine. And we've talked about how to do that many times. Spencer, we can go over that some other time, how to open and close a shrine. And then you sit down and you would do your opening prayers. And Patricia had asked about this. Almost, I'd say 90% of the time, the opening prayer is always the refuge prayer we do in Chenrezi, Sanjay Chodal Soki Chodnamla. That's the opening refuge prayer. And we did, if any of you watched this morning with His Eminence talk, that was a great order also. Then you would do the 4 measurables. May all sentient beings gain happiness. May they be free of suffering, joy, equanimity. You would do that prayer. It begins with Samchen, Tamche, Dewa, Dang. Often, if you're ever at a big gathering, they do these all in a row. Then you can offer mandala if you already know how to offer a mandala. If you don't worry. And I think the most important prayer that we did in retreat that has always been very meaningful to me is to do the confession to the 35 Buddhas. And if you don't have that, just make a list and I'll have you all email me and we'll make sure you get that. Have any of you done that practice? Okay. Cathy teaches it usually often, and it's a very profound practice. You confess all of your wrongs from past, present, and future times before 35 Buddhas of confession. And it's a very, very cathartic. Then I would begin my practice. So if you do Nundro, then you would start at prostrations no matter where you are in your Nundro, and do prostrations however many. If you, let's say like Patricia, you're doing Guru Yoga, so you probably do a few, maybe 21 or 108 prostrations, whatever you can do, depends on your body also. And then you would sit down, and of course you would have already said the liturgy, and then you do Vajrasattva, then Mandala, and then do Guru Yoga. So what if you're only doing, how many of you are doing prostrations right now only? I've started. So for you, I would do the opening prayers, and I should say, I talked to Lhamo Cathy about this. I think it's very important to talk to your teacher because your teacher may have you doing some prayers already. So do whatever they have you do, but you're going to do more of them on this day. So do your opening sequence, whatever that is, because you might already have that, and then begin your prostrations. Do you all have boards? Have you all made boards? I should show you my prostration board. I'll do it later on. I have a great board. I make them all the time. So, and then if you're doing a lot of prostrations, you don't want to tire yourself out. So you need to take a few breaks. And during the break, you would just sit there next to your board and saying the mantra over and over, and then stand back up and start again. Now, I found it was too rigorous to spend 3 hours doing prostrations. So I talked to Rinpoche about it. He said, oh, no, you don't have to do it for the whole 3 hours. So what I did was I would tell myself, make a commitment to how many hours of retreat I was doing, and then make a commitment to how many prostrations I would do. I would try within the first part of that 3 hours. And then the rest of that would be filled with other practices, such as a mantra practice. If you're doing Chenrezi or Medicine Buddha, or and then some of you may have moved on and doing, any of you doing Vajrasattva right now? No, mostly prostrations of that. And then Patricia is doing Guru Yoga. So does that make sense? So these are big stretches of time. And normally at home, you might not even do an hour practice each day. I don't know what you're doing now. So make this work and make it be fun and joyous. And if 3 hours is too long, then make it a 2-hour stretch. You don't have to make it. So this doesn't have to be a militant thing. This is not a macho event. This is an event where you're inspiring yourself to practice more and have a quiet space for that. Are there any comments? You guys are so quiet today. Yes, Patricia.
Just, I guess, like you said, checking with Lama Cathy or something. I guess I'm just used to using the Tashi prayer a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And
I forgot that. Yeah, absolutely.
So like at some point, like you had us do the Kagyu lineage prayer, like when we started today. So I usually try and get that in somewhere. So I guess you're just making me aware, like I can see when you're presenting it for the Nundro and stuff, how that definitely fits in with the flow.
Actually, with anyone, I'm glad you brought that up. With anyone, the order is normally, you always start with Tashi prayer, because Tashi prayer removes all obstacles. And in fact, a lot of the other practices I do that you don't do yet, like I do a lot of smoke offerings. The first part of the morning, particularly, we always do things to remove obstacles for the rest of the day if you're doing a day retreat. So we're kind of pretending we're doing a day retreat right now. And so if you don't have a whole day, then just abbreviate from this. So you would start with Tashi prayer, and then I would do the lineage prayer, then refuge, then the 4 measurables, and then offer a mandala, and then the 35 Buddhas. That's kind of traditionally what we always did. You know, we did some others, but that's kind of what I would call the core. But you know, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas don't really know if you've done it in order, so they don't really care. It's more our habit, right? I mean, I think when my fanny hits the cushion, I'm ready to do a Tashi prayer, right? I mean, this is a really special type of conditioning we have on purpose, so that we learn how to practice naturally at all times. Justin, you look so comfortable there. I love his chair. Don't go asleep on me now.
I appreciated like how you mentioned some about having an order, like where in the sense of removing obstacles. I guess that's what I meant. Like I know like whatever we do, the Buddha will understand, but it's like trying to learn how you can, when possible, forming the habit so it's more effective, like you were saying, removing the obstacles and then like doing the other prayers. I guess one that I just really enjoy doing is the Heart Sutra.
So you could put that in anywhere that would feel correct for you. that you
Okay.
would like. Yeah. So when do you normally do it in the morning? When do you normally do it?
I usually do it after the Tashi prayer. And sometimes because I'm pressed with time, I just made a decision that instead of doing the lineage prayer, which I used to do before the Heart Sutra, I know that I'm going to be saying it when I get to the Guru Yoga section.
Oh, that's true.
So I just go from the Tashi prayer to the Heart Sutra,
Okay.
and then, you know, move from there. I guess that's the thing is, I just try and fit in some things where I have like a heart connection or something. I try to also sing like the praise of the 21 Taras,
Mhm.
because I just feel like it's blessed me so much, so that even if I don't have a lot of time, I try and work that in the morning.
You know that the 21 Taras would also remove obstacles. So that's often used also. So everything you're saying is perfect.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's great. Very good. Anyone other discussion on the prayers in the morning? So thank you, Patricia. That was really great. So Rinpoche told us, I mean, we keep learning all these practices over time, but if you're doing Ngondro, he would say to me, just do Ngondro, you know? So once you start the Ngondro, I would stay with that for that part of that session. And if you need to break a little bit, you could get up and walk around or go outside if you need to stretch your legs a little bit. Or you are allowed to study a little bit. You know, I did talk about, you know, we always think mentally we don't know enough. Well, you want to be able to understand what you're doing. There's no question about that. So it's encouraged that you spend a few minutes maybe reviewing the instruction on the visualization, because not most people just don't remember the whole thing like that. They have to. So in my mind, I always go back to certain pages and just review the order of how to do something so that it becomes, and then I'll experiment with it. Maybe I'll read that and then I'll sit there and try and do that visualization and go back and look again. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of be doing a tiny bit of self-study to make your practice flow better. Because sometimes people just rattle off the words, and I think they forget that there's incredible meaning and things that are happening with visualization. And visualization is not something that comes for a lot of people overnight. You have to work at it a little bit, but don't push. There's no pushing in this. It's just enrichment. This is an enrichment type of day. So for me, before I eat breakfast, I go outside and I do a smoke offering, again, to remove obstacles and to also placate all the local deities. I mean, so depending on what you're doing, you might do different practices. So let's say if you're someone here that does not do, Caitlin, are you doing Ngondro?
No, I'm not doing Ngondro yet.
Okay, so I thought I saw someone that wasn't doing Ngondro, and that's fine. Some people never do the Ngondro route. Everyone's different. So I don't know, what other practices do you do? Do you do deity practices like the Chenrezig and?
Yeah, I mainly do shamatha and I do a little tonglen and chenrezig.
Okay, so for someone that does that, and some people, each session will do it a little different. Some people will do one session with shamatha, one with tonglen, and then the others with Ngondro. Everyone will do it this very differently. This is all up to what it is. So for me, sometimes I have to learn Medicine Buddha a little bit better, or Green Tara. So I might have different sessions for different practices. So make it very individual, but definitely if you're doing shamatha, and I know you've done it for a while now, you might want to spend a few minutes after you've said your first prayers, of looking at the instruction in Rinpoche's book, The Dharma Path. And because he has such a beautiful description of shamatha, and go through that again, or just read, a couple of pages, and then sit and adjust a little bit and practice maybe for whatever timeline you have, and then pause and maybe look at the book again. And then later, when you're doing Tonglen, do the same thing. So you can make this for any practice you want. If some of you are doing Mahamudra, you would just rest your mind. That's very hard, but so does that cover most of your practice? Is there anyone I didn't cover on what you're doing?
Lhamo, could I actually dive in and ask a quick question? So I do a daily song offering as well, and I do Sercho on the new moon and the full moon. Now, if I were to do a home retreat that also fell on a full moon or new moon.
Wait, you have to go back. What is Sercho? Is that Sor?
Yes, S-U-R.
It's just to let you know it's pronounced Sor.
Okay.
Because there's an umlaut over it.
Okay.
If you're going to learn Tibetan, I'm going to make you say it right. so that is always done in the evening. Always in the evening.
Yeah.
Because it's for the evening spirits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So you said that, and then I'm sorry, because I stopped there. Keep going.
So if I were to do a home retreat on one of those days, would I substitute my retreat schedule in for my normal practices, or would I kind of combine them?
What would you do extra? See, I do SOAR every day, so that's normally a daily practice.
Oh, okay. See, I only do that twice a month. So my question was, if I'm primarily focusing on Noondro, and I wanted to do a home Noondro retreat, and I wanted to make that, the bulk of it, would I leave all the other daily practices or monthly practices that I do off to the side and focus on the retreat only? Or would I kind of incorporate the retreat with daily, monthly things as well?
We're all different personalities. Now, my personality loves to pick up more prayers and do a million things. So Vajrayana is perfect for us because it keeps us busy. But other people, I would think of my husband, likes to do only certain things. And they're both as profound. So do what feels good. Now, the point of retreat is to inspire you and to build up your merit. So there's a great deal of merit in making offerings. And I talked about offerings earlier, but I didn't mention these practices because I didn't know if anyone was doing them. I would definitely do these practices. Do the Songze in the morning, before breakfast, at sunrise, and then do Soar after Mahakala in the afternoon, if you're doing Mahakala, or just do it towards sunset. Yeah. And yes, and they're very beneficial. And then do the rest of the time in Lundro, if you're comfortable with that. Yeah. But what if that's just too much? If you're doing prostrations, that's a lot of prostrations. So I would say I would definitely have some times where you do a deity practice, if you like Medicine Buddha or Chenrezig or Vajrasattva, one of the other practices, or Tara, because again, that's just so full of merit, and it makes you think of all sentient beings. Sometimes when we're doing prostrations, it's all about me. When you do deity practice, it's all about, all sentient beings. So it's very nice to blend them. And here's my books. When you have breaks sometimes, I remember during mine, Rinpoche told me to find books that would inspire me. My first retreat, I remember I read this book a great deal, The Life of Milarepa. I would just weep, I couldn't wait to read the next chapter, but I would hold myself off and go practice. The other one, especially if you're a Chenrezig person, this poor book has so many markers in it. This is all about Chenrezig practice. And it's just little verses by Dingo Khyentse Rinpoche. It is the most beautiful practice. It's actually, he didn't write it. It's written by Pacha Rinpoche. And it's called The Heart Treasure of the Enlightened Ones. But it's very profound because it's full of his commentary. So things like that really kept me, so my retreat stayed very fresh. Now that's the other thing. You don't want to think, oh gosh, now I have to go do another 3 hours of prostrations. Well, unless you're in an extraordinary fitness level, that's a bit much. Now, if you're doing guru yoga, you can do a few hours of that. But for me, for sitting, I can't sit for more than an hour or two. So I probably have to get up and move or do something for a few minutes or take a break. But this is a great discussion. Any other questions right now? How's our timeline? Oh, it's pretty good.
There's a question in the chat.
Mhm.
In the shrine, is that to fill the water bowls and light the candles? Is that what opening the shrine means?
Oh, yes. So we've had shrine classes before. If anyone needs me to go over that, I can do that privately with you. Yes, so behind me, if people can see, I actually have, there's these metal bowls. And so to open a shrine would mean, because closing a shrine is you empty everything out, kind of put it to bed for the night. So in the morning, we open the shrine by filling the bowls with water and some saffron water. And you could put offerings up there, like a little cookie or something. You could put them all over the place, or some fruit, dried fruit, or dried nuts. And you could put more lamps out too. Tibetans have whole places where they go, where they offer only butter lamps. It's just amazing. So, of course, at home you don't want to do that because it's too much fire in the room. But and the flowers and all that. And then you would open the shrine, and then I said earlier, if for the most part, when we open shrines, we've talked about, you have a little container with some mendrup and you have water in it, and you dip something like the end of a long chopstick. You dip it in that water and then sprinkle over the shrine and say Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom. And you can do the same with just throwing rice on the shrine, and then it's considered open and consecrated. And then you begin your practice. Then at the end of the day, you empty your shrine bowls in the opposite order and dry them, and then put the bowls. So I only have 3 here because mine have other substances in it. But some people, you have just water bowls, and some people just have one bowl. It just depends on the person. Yeah, what's on their shrine. Thank you, Caitlin. I'm trying to think, what else did we talk about? So let me go through the schedule again. Oh, is it okay if I do the long schedule one more time? Oh, Evelyn, is this touching on anything helpful for you? Because you're in an unusual situation with an abbreviated type of retreat.
That's okay. This is perfect because I can adapt this. I just mostly needed to hear all these things again and to be able to, keep them in mind. But this is fine.
There's no rules. There are actually no rules. The important rule,
right.
The only thing I would say is just try and be diligent. If you say to yourself, I'm going to do a one-day retreat, try and stick to that. Don't, after 2 hours, this is too boring. Try and push through it just a little bit and see if it's meaningful. So if you're that, like, I know that's my personality type. So I was shocked that I started with a 1 month retreat, but a lot of people just do a half-day retreat because maybe they feel they need part of Saturday to do errands. So some weekends I get up really early before my husband's up, and I actually have that day off, and I'll do a retreat early morning for a few hours. And I really look at it as a retreat. I lock my door so nobody comes in. I want it quiet, and I just practice. And then at noon, I could have lunch with him, and then we go out and do our errands. So you can
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it really helps me to do that. Because as Trungpa Rinpoche said to me several times, not enough people realize their practice is actually a retreat. So yeah, and I love the idea of a little retreat cave. So any other questions or comments? Yes, Justin.
I think Evelyn had mentioned like wanting to keep and cultivate retreat mind throughout the day. I wonder if you could speak to how to do that in the middle of everything else that we're doing in life.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think as you start, you'll feel it's very interesting when you say, okay, today is going to be a retreat. It's a very different feeling than, okay, I'm going to go do this and see my friends, and I'm going to watch this movie, and I'm going to check my emails. But to suddenly bring it down to, no, I'm gonna practice today, is very different. And one way I really maintain that is through silence. Speaking is very, takes a lot of energy and a lot of engagement. So in retreat, even if it's just the morning when I'm silent. And that will completely change the whole atmosphere of my retreat. Even if you're a quiet person, not to look at your phone, that was the hardest thing for me. In retreat, we had to turn in our phones before we started a formal retreat. That was hard because, I used my phone for my alarm, so I had to go find a little clock for an alarm. And that helped a lot because I don't trust myself. If I have my phone with me, I know I'm going to check something later on. I think our greatest invention and bane at the same time. But does that answer that a little bit?
Yes, and so like after retreat though, how do we kind of use it as a touchstone in the middle of the day when we're doing those busy things,
You mean like the next day or something?
Right, like after retreat, how to kind of keep touching back to the benefit of that, or to call it into the present moment?
I think it's when you're in retreat, everyone's different, but even just when you're doing your practice every day, that quiet, there's a special tenderness and quietness within practice. And I think you'll be aware of that more in your everyday. Anyone else? No?
I guess I just wanted to ask you, Cathy, like in connection with that question too, like you mentioned about the silence being part of the retreat mind. And then when we're trying to go back to our daily life, like I was wondering about just trying to take or get in touch with that silence. And I didn't know if you could say more about, like, I've heard some teachers talking about trying to like rest more during the activities of the day. Maybe could you share a little bit about that?
What do you rest more during? You mean when you're in normal activity to be more restful, or
I think
rest the mind? You mean?
Yeah, being able to try and rest your mind.
I think I'm really not. I'm not a teacher. I'm just sort of just helping you a little bit with this. So, and I'm not feigning false pride or anything. So I really would highly recommend. What I didn't mention about this book is Khenpo Rinpoche taught this. So this is actually also his commentary, and the most brilliant questions and answers are in here. Very, very, very practical. But touching on what you said, the whole point of our practice is to become awakened and to become Buddhas and to help other beings. And the practices themselves, from your own experience, you're doing Guru Yoga right now. When you did Vajrasattva, did you have profound, wasn't that a pretty amazing practice?
Yeah.
And so what we build up is our confidence in how profound the Dharma is. The Dharma is so profound. It's, I would say, probably changed everyone's lives that I'm looking at right here. So, but we're not allowed to be attached to our meditation experience because it changes all the time. But I think I'm not advanced enough to answer this question. Really good questions, but maybe ask Lama Cathy or someone, not me, for that. But does that make sense? I mean, I think your own meditation experiences will show you how profound that event was, not just doing this little retreat, but just all your practices you've all been doing for years. I mean, look at who you were before and who you are now. But not to be attached to that, but to realize and to offer it up. So the whole point in this part of retreat is to increase offerings. And don't forget, at the end of the day, to offer everything you did, all the opportunities that allowed you to have that retreat, that day off, all the kind friends and loved ones that maybe helped buy you food, or people at work that gave you time off. Offer all of that up so they also may have opportunities to awaken and have retreats someday. That's very important. To always go back to those basic concepts that never get stale is what always amazes me. Those are very stirring questions you asked, both of you. Thank you. I never think about it, you know. Sometimes I think we take the Dharma for granted, but it does change us. It does affect us and open our heart up. And I think we owe it to everyone else to pray that that happens to them too. Any other questions? Anyone thinking about trying retreat?
We have one more question in chat. Just a curiosity, could you say why the tankas behind you are covered? Should we cover ours in any specific time?
I think I was giving a class to a bunch of doctors at the university. And my one tanka is Mahakala, this very wrathful tanka. My other tanka is naked Machi Labdrum. And I just thought, and then when I took the covers off, because normally you bring the covers down to roll them, I realized they're covered in dust because we have like a white powdery dust in our furnace system. So I keep meaning to get up on the ladder and use a roller to clean them, and I haven't done that yet. So that's why it's down. No, you should always see your tankas. I mean, it's okay. They're not sleeping. They didn't need to sleep. It's just, that's why they're down. And I forgot to, it's really hard. I have a ladder, but from the second to the third step is huge. So I'm kind of too short to jump up, but maybe I should have Helder come over. He lives right down the street. No, no joking. So I hope that you all try something and or help you all realize you're already been doing a retreat, right? Let me see. I have a few things marked in this book from Rinpoche. Let's see what he said. I mean, Karma Chagme has an entire section called just how to actually practice retreat. It's very involved. It's like 50 pages. But I love Kempo Rinpoche's Q&As. They were some of the best stuff. All right, this is just part of what somebody asked. Someone said, for those who cannot do retreat for a month or 3 years, but have a weekend, other than having your normal shrine set up, is there any other special consecration that you're supposed to do? And is it okay just to follow the daily schedule for the 4 sessions like that they do at Karmi Ling? He said, aside from setting up your shrine, the only thing you need is to throw some rice blessed by the fathers and sons of the Kagyu lineage. Other than that, you don't need any other kind of ritual or consecration, especially if the place has already been used for retreat in any way. It's fine to do the simple or unelaborate practice there in all sessions. And you can be doing Chenrezi meditation or shamatha. And Karma Chagme talks about there's 3 levels of practitioners. Some that are very ordinary, but they're very good at profound practices because everything is so profound for them. And that's the beauty of Karma Chagme. He really cuts through that you don't have to be a highly erudite scholar to practice. Then he talks about all the other, the scholars and all that. And then somebody said, if the place is not the same place that has already been used for a retreat, like your own apartment, is there anything that's required? And he said, nothing special, just prepare fresh offerings, and perform the practice starting from early morning until late at night, as is described here. So he just had very simple instructions along with Karma Chagma, very simple stuff. So I hope you try it. When I did my first retreat, I asked Rinpoche if there's any instructions. He said, no, just go and practice. There's nothing special. I didn't have a set of shrine bowls. I'd have someone from the store bring some shrine bowls over. I'd forgotten there was nothing there except a cushion to sleep on. And a great view of the Hudson Valley and a portalette. No, it wasn't even a portalette. The funniest story I will share. So in the outhouse it didn't look anything like a normal outhouse. There was like a raised whatever that you sit on, but there was no toilet seat. So I had to find a piece of wood to sit on just so I could pee. And I remember one day it fell, it moved and it fell into the hole and I almost went in after it. And I swear I felt something pull me back. I almost went head first. I couldn't believe it. And so I laughed so hard for maybe a day. I never stopped laughing about it. It was sort of symbolic of the entire support of my life just fell right through me anyway. I told Rinpoche he understood, but at home, sometimes it's the littlest things that make me laugh when I do retreats. So I hope you get to try it. And I hope someday when COVID's all cleared up, you could go to KTD and rent a room there or go to 10-day teaching. And for 10 days, you could, sit there and do practice, because we do a lot of practice between sessions. There's teaching and then there's a lot of practice. And Karmi Ling is a great resource to do. You can rent a whole cabin or rent in almost like a tiny apartment there. And I've done that a lot before. And it's just beautiful. Very different from the old days. They have washer and dryers now. And they have someone that'll buy your food for you. So anyway, any other questions, any type? No. Yeah. Well, I hope you got something out of it. You might not have. I'm sorry, this is so simple, but I think it's important for you to know that that's the word. It's simple to do. And I wish you so much luck and blessings with all your practice. And thank you for all your kind questions and sharing with me. I really appreciate it. So anything else? No? Wow, I never get done on time. This is like a record. Okay, well, good luck. Happy practice. Thanks, Spencer. All right, see you all later. And thank you, Caitlin, for helping me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Lama Cathy. And if you could, and because of all these classes, especially when I'm teaching and then you can't afford to give money, don't, just let them know. Lama Cathy is very generous. Okay, see you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
have to offer the merit. I forgot.
Oh, merit.
Yeah.
So just very quietly, let's offer the merit for all of those that in the past that have prayed for us so that we can do retreat and practice someday. We offer their merit. We offer the merit of all of our precious teachers. And take all of the merit from today's session and all of your practice, and may it cover the earth like flowers, bringing beauty to everyone. Thank you. See you later. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lama Cathy.